sir. It is my honor to introduce another distinguished speaker, Dr. Navina Jaffa Madam, a leading expert on South Asian cultural skill mapping, sustainable heritage, and inclusive cultural development models. She is often described as one of India's most enigmatic curators of heritage experiences, hailed as the gatekeeper of the spectacular by the Financial Times. She is a Fulbright scholar at the Smithsonian Center for Folklife and Cultural Heritage, a trained a trained Kathak practitioner and dance historian. Her pioneering book, Performing Heritage Art of Exhibit Walks, has not only revolutionized heritage tourism in India but also generated over 1,500 livelihood opportunities across the country. At the international level, she served as a Feldman Scholar at Brandeis University. Her leadership includes serving as Vice President of the Center for New Perspectives. Her exceptional achievements have been recognized with several prestigious honors, naming a few: Sanatan Sanskriti Award 2024 and Women of Pure Wonder Award 2017. Now, please join me in welcoming Dr. Navina Jaffa Madam, who has dedicated her life to conserving cultures while revitalizing them for future generations.
Thank you. Thank you. And after such a prolific lecture, I feel I'm an outsider into the world of all the anthropologists sitting here. My first glimpse of the idea of anthropology was from my guru since the age of 10, Dr. Kapila Vatsyayan, under whom I did my PhD. And I traveled with her. She introduced me to the idea of India, how to look at India. I speak before you bringing my small experience because one of the passions that I came across, I didn't get a job after a PhD. So I had to do a startup. I crossed disciplines. My bachelor's was in English from Stephens, then history, then sociology, and then back to history. I did my National Museum program on art history, but I didn't find a job. Those were the 90s. I was continuing my PhD, and Kapila ji, and I got a small 1,500 junior scholarship at the IGNCA. And Kapila ji was a very difficult guru. You know, I finished my field work and I was 8 months pregnant, and she said, if you're doing it on socio-cultural communities, etc., how can you leave out Banaras? I said, but Didi, I'm now pregnant and I can't go. And she said, no, you can stay in a house and you can still do your PhD after the baby comes. So at 3 months of taking that child, I started my journeys of India, which also included Raigarh. And I stayed in Raigarh and discovered the world of Virya Elwin with a little baby staying with the Gond family and drinking the chawal ka pani ka, in the morning, drinking rice water. The startup I did was on academic tourism. And I needed to fund it. So those days there was not too much of security, and the government of India would bring out a directory of a diplomatic directory. And I would sit on a fax machine and market my program by curating some live experiences instead of staying in a classroom. And that allowed me to visit all kinds of libraries, do all kind of field research, go everywhere. And it was also a paid kind of a thing as a field trip. So it is within that context. May I have my PowerPoint presentation so that I talk to you directly and not take too much of time? And what do I need to press? Okay. So this is this is the book which was brought out by the government of India last year, Exhibiting India. It covers methodologies on how to exhibit India, how to do your research, how to look for cultures, exactly what Dr. Shiv Prasad was talking about, and valuing people who understand the soil, or Dombari Nath who calls his Devi Akash Devi and performs ironically under the skyscrapers. She dances on a rope to the Akash Devi, but is in the shadow of skyscrapers. I look at this as that metaphor. Dombari Naths, a DNC, a denotified tribe, you don't find. So even when you go to their communities, you're looking at the greater paraphernalia of human rights and, getting them life certificates, which are very important, I mean, all that, we all know, you people know that better than I do. But letting them forget what they actually, because they stayed out of the city, and they were marginalized living into the forest, they survived with that little space, with those little resources. So for instance, I said, what do you do for your massage? You walk the rope, you do so much of acrobats. They said, we use monitor lizard oil. And we drink that oil as well. And a whole world starts opening. So I'm coming to the first case study which I did, which was I introduced the pastoral tourism, but nothing happened. They took away all my notes and they did their own report, erasing my name. But I entered the world of the Raikas, who live in Godwar, which is, in popular language, the area where Aravali ends and the Thar begins in Rajasthan, in Sadri village, which is also in the heritage scape, which is the word I use, not heritage landscape, but heritage scape. You have the temple of Ranakpur, but then you have multiple kind of heritage to be creating skill mapping and cultural heritage landscape mapping. So, as Kapilaji would say, the responses of wisdom, and Sir also just mentioned, the response is due to the geographical context. So if you're in plateau, what do you wear? What do you eat? How do you build your homes? Everything, even the language that you speak, the sound of the language that you speak arises from the context of geography. So my strategy, which I offered to the UNESCO and at the Smithsonian, was grid system in terms of geographical units of longitude and latitude. So you're not dictated by, say, this is Telangana and that is Andhra Pradesh and this is, you're not dictated by linguistics either. Because if you go to Dharwad, what do you do about Maharashtra? I mean, these are shared cultures. So where do you establish the fluidity of the idea of culture? And I would always use the metaphor that culture is hydraulic in its sense, and the administration should be geological, that it can be eroded. Administration should be geological. That's how culture can synergize. So if you divide the longitude and latitude, that's how you get the cultural skill mapping, because first you understand the geographical status of these zones. Then you look at the commonalities of the responses to the vegetation, how people have responded to it in different ways. So if you have a salt desert in India, it extends right into Sindh in Pakistan. You have people crossing the salt desert, and one of the traditional knowledge skill is reading the stars and making their way in the night. These are common shared skills. The bird doesn't see if it's a mosque or a gurdwara or a church. where to make the nest. That's what I'm talking about, breaking walls through cultural skill mapping on geographical context. So the Raikas, he was talking about development. Their idea of development, because this is the Kumbhalgarh fort, make it from a leopard country, convert it into a tiger country, not realizing the tiger needs X amount of land. The leopard doesn't. The wolf doesn't. Neither does the altitude matter. So you destroy the biodiversity here. You create the Kumbhalgarh fort, you make a wall there, so the grazers who would go, there's a saying that the camel will not eat akra and the bakri will eat everything but kankra, which is kankar, stone. So since the goat would go into the forest, it would eat and there would be no forest fires. Today, you're getting only forest fires. And the grazers, in the earlier days, every time there was a fire, they would ring bells and beat their thalis, and everybody would go to address the fires. Today they are crying and they cannot even reach the forest. So pastoral tourism and how the development and the intersection. So when I started curating pastoral tourism, I took one thread. Camel milk is very good for type 1 diabetes. So I said, okay, go with these people, sing their songs, immerse yourself in their culture. For 7 days, have that 250 milliliters of camel milk, and also do the camel milk skin stuff, so you can all come out beautiful like the next Miss India. Is there a way that we can play the music? No, no? Can you? We can? Okay. So I just want to tell you how the immersive tourism happens, which is not exotica, because exotica means mysterious, somewhere distant. When you're going on grazing tour, you're actually there drinking your milk in the akra, living with them in their homes. So while I'm, if it is possible, let's not waste time. I'm sorry. No? Otherwise we'll go. No? Is it? No, it doesn't matter. Let's go to the next. Okay. So as a dancer, I think my first linkages came because I studied with Pandit Birju Maharaji for 40 years. So till the time he passed on to 3 years ago. So when I had to earn a livelihood, and dance is very difficult, from the top of your head to the toes, you need to be healthy. And if you have babies, etc., that means chutti ho gayi. So I started doing these academic tours, and my lesson was at the Smithsonian from an anthropologist called Dr. Richard Curran, who was at the University of, he was a student of Victor Turner. And his first thing was, in museums, take those objects out and make them dance, make them perform. That's how my first book came to be called Performing Heritage. And that is why I said the anthropology has to go to the people. You know, when you study culture, it should not be that ye dekh lo, wo dekh lo, aise kar lo. It has to be like you have to communicate that warmth. You have to make the stone dance. So here I was, actually, you may not get the sound, but if you can play the video, you can just see me. These people have very funny sounds to call their livestock. You know, they call these livestock. So they have the song on the sound of these sounds of how to call the livestock. So I was dancing. We were doing their cultural survey of their skills, their knowledge. And so I was actually dancing while we were doing the survey. So because I was dancing, They were talking more about the culture. They brought out more songs that would be appealing, and they would not think of something else. My second case study is of the Fakir Rani Jats. These are people who have a special camel. They're called Kharai camels, and these are swimming camels. Their grazing pastures are in the the mangroves. Huh? So they go to the mangroves, and they have, there was a synergy between the Ajrak block printer and the Fakir Rani Jats, because they were nomadic, so they had special wisdom of where to settle for the grazing period. They had some landmarks that they should have water, they should have this, they should have that, all that kind of stuff, how to feel comfortable in your nomadic life. These people are now development. So the forest department has stopped that they cannot go to the shrines inside their forest, right? So they called me up. They said, "Madam, please do something." So I call up, and for maybe a week, they get the permission to go inside. The salt lobby has come there, and that has completely destroyed them. And then they blame them that they're overgrazing, because you do not allow the natural transhumance to happen. You've built roads without really looking at these pastoral communities who carry so much of your cultural identity of this country on their shoulders for centuries. They have amazing knowledge of embroidery. As you see, the women, I dress up as I go there because I refuse to wear my pants and shirts. I said, "Jaisa desh, vaisa bhesh." My third study, there was a young man this morning who did a wonderful study of a novel on the Silent Valley, and the Kurumbas, the Murukas, the Iralus, and the Katunars. These are the caves still living in the caves. And I went there, and now I'm wanting funding to do 12 stories of the wisdom these people are forgetting because of education. 12 stories of how they know the forest, how they know about the butterfly, they know about the dragonfly, they know about so many things, and they're seeing the changes, what is happening in terms of climate change. So she's an Irula, and he's a Muruka. And Mari, this man here, can you see Mari? He took Prince of Wales, now King Charles, for a heritage walk. He has the most amazing documentation. And so I went to the Atapi, not to Atapi, but inside the forest. And this is that famous goat, the Atapi goat they have. And then I found that they, not their tattoos, but their preservation of their house as sacred is on their veranda, through these dotted lines, which you need to look because it's not very evident. So where are they shy about who they are? Do they think that they are completely heathens because their measurement is all of us as the developed hierarchy? This is Mari I was talking about, and he is the most amazing knowledge reserve, has never written about himself, has never documented. So this is urgent. This is an SOS. Again, while I was talking, I asked Mari, I hope there are no tigers here. If they are not, then I'd like to dance with the butterflies. So I want to bring something between this site and a site in Mexico. And I don't know how you can link it with anthropology, but the monarch butterfly takes to migrate from North America to Mexico near a landmine village, takes 3 generations. Okay. Return journey, 1 generation. That particular village welcomes the butterfly, has songs. It's 3 hours from the Mexico City. Has songs, has clothes, has all kind of things that are inspired as metaphors of the butterflies in terms of rejuvenation and revitalization from cocoon to whatever, This butterfly, um, again, the host plants are dying and disappearing in the Silent Valley. So we can't play, but actually I was dancing on the butterflies. I had to dance with them. And I asked Mari, as long as there are no tigers here, I don't mind dancing with the butterflies. The last case study is that of the Aryan Brokpas. These are indigenous communities from the Baltistan. I lived with them for 2 months documenting them. I got to know of them. My father was in the services and I got special permission. That time Ladakh was not open for tourism. At least these parts were not. So I went to Dahanu, which is this village. Curious because there was a National Geographic magazine that said that there was pregnancy tourism happening in this area. The Germans were coming here to get pregnant by these people. And as a young person, I was really fascinated by pregnancy, and apparently those two people got court-martialed because these girls made it to these valleys on a donkey back. Okay? So I was very curious to know who are these people selling the apricots, wearing flowers in their head, coming all the way to Kargil. And I went, I forced my father. I said, I want to go and stay there. And I went there to stay with them. But I was very curious to know who is the man who tried to make this woman pregnant. Then I met two people. They were two brothers. So they have a festival called Bonona, which happens because of the war in the 60s. 2 villages went to Pakistan and 3 or 4 remained with us. So they skipped 1 year for the villagers in Pakistan. These guys got converted into Buddhists. Those guys must have got converted to Muslims. But they observe all the traditional, it's like the Madigas who would have their devis inside their little rooms or whatever. So in the same, Srinivasu connected me to Subhadra, and that's where I discovered actually, that's how I've come here. I was looking for the Madiga culture. So here the Aryans, so this is Chospel, the grand man who impregnated this woman. But when I asked him, I said, didn't you find out whether it was a boy or girl? He said, I did my work. Now I've forgotten, I did what I needed to do. But Chospel, and this is Chospel's wife. Climate change. These people grow apricots and walnuts. That's their sustainability. They would take the out, and you're talking about development. Ladakhis never used refined sugar. They always used apricot as for a sweetening agent. Today, with over-tourism in Ladakh, there are bakeries like in Manali, and climate change has happened. All these clothes, by the way, when I was staying with them, there was no time to wear half sleeve. It was, now you cannot wear these clothes. So when I went about 2 years ago, and Chospel is now very old. No, I went when he was there. So he still was able to stay in his village before COVID. And I went there, and when he came down like a little, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, he came running down the mountain. And I said, Chospel, oh, so you've come. And he said, no, but when you come, don't go into the apricot orchard. I said, but I've always sat on those trees and, enjoyed myself. So he said, Kiri, Kiri, Kiri. I didn't understand. So there were these caterpillars. Fortunately, with me were 2 doctors from WHO. I got so badly allergic that I could have died within 2 hours. Such was the poison. I asked them later, they said, we never had these in our fruit. We cannot wear now our clothes. I said, have the agricultural people told you anything about it? And they were telling them about pesticides. They were educating them to consume poison, literally. So now with the bakeries, after Gujarat, Ladakh is becoming the second capital for diabetes. Because they would use apricot oil and they would use apricot as a sweetener. So some young anthropologists on a freelance are now trying to revive the Ladakhi food in Kargil, which is different to the Buddhist food on this side. So this is all the Shia Muslim, cuisine in Kargil. And they were organizing, it was an interesting initiative. It was a motorbike tour and trying to organize a Kargil food festival. I said I will help them, and if you can document and get maybe a Bollywood actor to be your postcard person to, to market it and to create the big fashion about it. So it's like a Fab India. Next time you and I and everybody will be wearing what we need to wear because the icons are wearing the same. Thank you so much.
So now I request Professor M. Romesh Singh sir to please come forward and felicitate R. Shivaprasad sir. Now I request Dr. Madhuri ma'am to please come forward and felicitate Dr. Navina Jaffa ma'am. Now I request Professor Ram Mohan sir, Head Anthropology, Central University Sikkim, to please come forward and felicitate Professor M. Suborai sir.
రథ సార్కి ఇచ్చేస్తారు రథ సార్ పట్నాయక్ సార్ ఇచ్చేస్తారు
Now I request Dr. Srinivasa Nukarappu sir, University of Hyderabad, to felicitate our keynote speaker, Professor S.M. Patnaik sir.
Hey, just give it there. Sir, for it there. So actually, it came late because of rain. They swim and then came.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for a very wonderful lecture. Sir. Thank you so much. It was
Now
very
we have a
detailed and then
tea break, and after that, please come back again and check your